All right, on today's episode, we're going to do a bracketology. So it is March Madness, Sunday night. I waited purposely to put this one out as I'm going to fill out my bracket and talk about the picks and go all the way to the champion and anything in between that. And Lindsay might join in and give her 2 cents. So I hope you enjoy. Welcome to 2 Cents Worth. I'm your host, Ryan DeFaber. It is Bracketology. So here, if you are not familiar in the United States, college basketball from March 19th to April 8th. It is a lot of games. There are 68 teams that make it into a tournament. And at the end of it, one winner comes out. That is your national champion for college basketball. It's a big deal. As a college basketball fan, it's a big deal for me. I always enjoy it. It's always fun. There's games on at all times of the day, during the week, and everything. And I know my one friend, Matt, he takes days off to start the tournament because he likes to watch all the games. I'm not that into it where I would take PTO for it, but he does. It's his thing. But so what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to go through, give you my picks, and predict the winner for the national championship. And we'll go from there, and maybe Lindsay might come by and she might give her picks as well. I think that would be cool, but there's no guarantee. You know, with your wife, there's never a guarantee of what they're going to do. So let's start with, I keep on hitting the microphone because of the way I'm sitting. Sorry. Let's start with, I'm going to start with the East. So your number one overall seed, and it was very interesting on how all this goes on and how this all came about. So the number one overall seed in the tournament is Duke. So Duke won the ACC championship tournament yesterday here in Charlotte. They did not win the regular season, but they did win the tournament. So going into the tournament, I saw some people had Duke as a 2 seed. So I want to talk about that just for a second on how much things can change in college basketball and even at big time schools. You know, a lot changes for the smaller schools. You know, they'll go and win their conference championship and they'll get in. They might not have been the number 1 seed. But for a big time program like Duke, some were predicting because of the way that they had finished the season without Zion Williamson, 2 losses to Carolina. They had lost to Virginia Tech. They weren't playing at a high level, and so some people had them as a number 2 seed. Fast forward now to today, where Zion Williamson comes back, plays in the ACC tournament. They beat Syracuse, they beat Carolina, and they beat Florida State to win it all. And now they are the number 1 overall seed in the entire tournament, which is pretty incredible just on how much, in my opinion, a player like Zion Williamson makes a difference for a team. The fact that he didn't play to finish the season and they're a potential 2 seed, 3rd overall in the ACC, to then they win the ACC, and now they are the number 1 overall seed in this tournament. So they are number 1 in the East. They will play the winner of North Carolina Central versus North Dakota State. They're going on. They're going to win this game. I don't care who's getting in from this play-in game. Duke's moving on. All right, so we go to the 8-9 game. Winner of this game will play Duke in the next round, the round of 32. You have VCU, which I actually watched one of their games. So in college basketball, Duke is my number 1 overall team. Always been a fan, even growing up in Rhode Island. They were always on Saturdays. I talked about it in past podcasts. I've just always rooted for Duke. So it's not like I moved down here and I was a Fairweather fan. I'm like, oh, I'm going to pick Duke. I cheered for Duke growing up as a kid because they were always on Saturdays on CBS. It was just the games that they would put on up in Rhode Island. The other team that I am a fan of is the University of Rhode Island. Now they didn't have a great season this year. They were number 8 in the Atlantic 10, but I watched them play, and they played VCU. And VCU is the number 1 overall seed in the A10. Now, they didn't win it, but they got in because they're a really good team. But they've lost their best player in that game. Rhode Island beat them in the tournament on Friday, I believe the game was. Now, I don't know much about UCF. So it's VCU, Virginia Commonwealth is the 8 seed. University of Central Florida is the 9 seed in this bracket. What I have heard from now listening to Bracketology on ESPN with Billis, Seth Greenberg, Jay Williams, and Reese is that UCF has a 7'7" dude. Let me tell you, there's no way you can prepare for a 7'7" monster. That's just impossible. I don't see if VCU doesn't have their number 1 player, their guard, that got hurt in the Rhode Island game. I don't see them winning this game. I know UCF beat Houston a couple weeks ago when that was the game of the week that ESPN went to. So here I'm going to go UCF, and then that'll set up a matchup with Zion and this 7'7" monster that's out there. Okay, next game is 5 versus 12. Your 5 seed is Mississippi State. Your 12 seed is Liberty. There's always a 5-12 game, and it's not going to be this one, but there's always a 5-12 game that the 12 seed, I feel like, always wins. I think that's always a good 7-10 and a 12-5 always have some upsets in them. 11-6 has some too, but 12-5 always seems to have an upset. I don't have it in this one. It's Mississippi State moving on. Virginia Tech and St. Louis. I've watched a lot of Virginia Tech this year because of them being in the ACC. Virginia Tech's going to move on. That's quick and easy. Maryland is a 6 seed, and then you have Belmont and Temple as an 11 seed play-in game. And from what I've seen and heard, and is that Belmont is a legit team. So they were the number 1 team in the Ohio Valley Conference. They lost to Murray State. Murray State won the tournament. So Murray State gets in, Belmont gets the play-in game. I think Belmont wins, and I think they beat Maryland. That's going to be my upset here in this game, basically in this bracket. If I look at it, I'm kind of looking it up and down. They're going to play LSU. LSU is playing Yale. Yale a 14 seed. LSU a 3 seed. LSU is just better. I think they're gonna beat the Ivy Leagues. Yale's out, and you got a great matchup: Louisville versus Minnesota. And the committee did a very interesting thing here. They Rick Pitino, former Louisville coach. If you follow college basketball, he's in Greece now coaching. His son coaches Minnesota. Well, isn't it a coincidence that Minnesota and Louisville are playing each other in the play-in game, and Rick Pitino's flying back from Greece to help Minnesota, I'm sure, this week to prepare for this game. But I still see Louisville winning it. Louisville's moving on. Final game in this initial first games, Michigan State, the 2 seed, versus Bradley. Now, I would say Michigan State's the number 1 2 seed, and I think it's a shame for them that they are the number 1 2 seed and they're playing in the same bracket as the number 1 overall seed. I don't understand that. I don't get why the committee would do that. If you're going to put the number 1 2 seed, why would you not have them play against the number 4 1 seed, which was Gonzaga? Gonzaga was the last 1 seed in. Send Michigan State out there, give them a little bit of a, I don't want to say an easier task because it's not that, but give them more of a reward for being the number 1 overall number 2 seed. A lot of 1s and 2s and 2s and 2s. Regardless, they're in this bracket. They're in the East. They're going to move on and play Louisville. All right. So I'm going to go through the East all the way to pick my team out of the East, and then we're going to do the West, and then we're going to do the South, and then we're going to do the Midwest. All right. Duke UCF. Again, I talked about how much Zion Williamson makes a difference for this team. And it is extremely hard to sit there and say, yeah, UCF is going to beat them. If Zion Williamson plays, they are beating great teams. UNC is a great team. Florida State, a very underrated team out of the ACC. I'm going Duke to win it. And they're going to play Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech is going to beat Mississippi State, so you have a 1-4 matchup in the round of 16. Belmont versus LSU in this game. Man, it's tough, but I almost want to go Belmont. I'm not going to. I'm going to go LSU here. And I'm going to go Michigan State. So in the East, there's really no surprises. It's 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3. It's going to be Duke versus Michigan State in the round of 8, and Duke is going to your Final Four. So Duke is going to represent the East for me. Again, I have to go back to Zion Williamson. The difference that this guy makes for this team is incredible. I mean, they didn't finish the season strong. He didn't play the last 5 games. They lose both games to Carolina. They lose to Virginia Tech. They go up to Syracuse, and they almost, they pulled that one off, but not a great showing to finish the year. And then he comes back in the tournament, and they're a different team, and he is on a tear. I mean, this is a kid that you can see just loves the game. He out-hustles everyone. He plays defense like an 18-year-old shouldn't play defense. If you look at how the NBA is set up, this guy is up and down the court where you don't see that out of guys right out of college, that because he's going to be the number 1 overall pick, and he's going to go in the NBA, and he's already got the defensive side down. He'll work on his shooting. He'll get better at that, but he's just incredible. The amount of hustle, the rebounds he gets, the way that he just leads the team. Duke's coming out of the East. All right, let's go down to the West. You got Gonzaga, and then the play-in game is FDU, and I think that's Prairie View A&M. I don't even need to go too much into this. It's Gonzaga. Syracuse, Baylor. I've watched a lot of Syracuse. ACC. I've watched Baylor quite a bit. They've been actually on television a few games. I think Syracuse, just because of their length, they're going to go up against Gonzaga. And let me tell you, that's going to be a really, really good matchup because Syracuse has a lot of length, and I think that they can really put Gonzaga into a corner there, and we'll get back to that and see if where we stand on that. Murray State and Marquette. So Marquette, coached by former Dookie Wojciechowski. Murray State, arguably the second best player in the U.S. right now. But can Murray State beat Marquette? I'm going to say yes. That's a 12-5 upset right there for you. 12-5 upset, and I got another 12-5 upset coming. I'm going to pull this computer closer to me because my back's starting to hurt because I'm leaning forward trying to talk to you guys. All right. Florida State, Vermont, 4 versus 13. Florida State's moving on in that game. Now, the next game is Buffalo versus a play-in of Arizona State and St. John's. And I like the play-in. I don't like... Buffalo's going to move on. Buffalo is a legit team. If you haven't seen their record, I think they have like 2 or 3 losses. Like, they're... Maybe not 2 or 3 losses. But they're pretty damn good. But Arizona State and St. John's. So who's going to get in there? It doesn't matter. For me, I got Buffalo. I do think, though, that... I like St. John's, I'll be honest with you. But I think Arizona State is going to move on and win that. So, let's see. What's in the American East? What division is Buffalo in? Because I want to make sure that I get the... they're not the American East. Stay with me, people. There we go. Buffalo, 28-3. I mean, that's a legit team. 28-3, only 3 losses. But they're going to win. Texas Tech, North Kentucky. Texas Tech, a 3 seed. North Kentucky, 14. Texas Tech won the Big 12 regular season. They're moving on. Nevada, Florida. Nevada preseason, I believe, was like number 6. I mean, they were very highly ranked, and they finished out as a 7 seed. They're playing Florida. Florida not going to win this game. I hate to break it to you. If my brother-in-law or father-in-law are listening to this, Florida's out, in my opinion. They don't have the firepower to play with Nevada. Michigan, Montana. It's Michigan. they're moving on. Back up to Gonzaga, Syracuse. Should I do it? Should I put Syracuse over Gonzaga? Gonzaga coming off a loss to St. Mary's. Then they got kind of an easy game to start the bracket. And this is going to be the first competition that they're going to get against Syracuse. Boeheim, he does usually put some magic together for the tournament. Oh, hell, why not? I'm doing it. Syracuse over Gonzaga. Again, because of their length, I think Syracuse can match up pretty well against Gonzaga. And Gonzaga, a couple losses, Carolina, Tennessee. Both teams have length. I like Syracuse in this game. They're going to play Florida State. Florida State's going to knock out Murray State. Buffalo's going to beat Texas Tech. And Michigan's going to beat Nevada. So now in the final two games of this bracket, you have Syracuse versus Florida State, Buffalo versus Michigan, 8-4, 6-2. I hate to do it to you, Syracuse, but Florida State's beating you. And Michigan's going to go on, and Michigan is going to represent the West out of this bracket. They're going to beat Florida State. So the two teams that I now have in the Final Four, on this side of the bracket in Minneapolis on April 6th, it'll be Duke versus Michigan. A 1 out of the East, a 2 out of the West. We're going to the South. In the South, play the first game, you got Virginia. By the way, 3 ACC teams out of 4 number 1 seeds. Let's talk about how damn good that conference is. And then I got Virginia Tech making it far in the tournament. I got Florida State making it far. Syracuse making it far. Where we haven't even gotten to Carolina. We haven't gotten through this one yet. We haven't even started it. That's a heck of a conference they have this year. Great job, ACC. And living in ACC country, I root for most ACC teams except for Carolina. They can go fuck themselves. Virginia Gardner-Webb, 1 versus 16. Virginia couldn't get out of the round of 64 last year. Can they get out of it this year? Yeah, they absolutely can. Gardner-Webb, first NCAA appearance. It's not going to start with a victory over Virginia. Virginia is not going to get knocked out against a 16 seed 2 years in a row. Not going to happen. Ole Miss, Oklahoma. I'm going Ole Miss, SEC over the Big 12. Oklahoma just doesn't have the firepower this year. Here's another upset. 5 versus 12. Wisconsin versus Oregon. I'm going Pac-12. I'm going Oregon. Oregon over Wisconsin. Kansas State, UC Irvine. It's Kansas State. The 4 seed moves on to play Oregon. Villanova, St. Mary's. Now here's a good game. I like this game. St. Mary's can beat, I think, are very underrated just because of the conference that they play in. They beat Gonzaga. Gonzaga, number 1 seed. St. Mary's won the conference. Villanova, defending champion, has struggled a bit this year. I think 9 losses on the year. Not the dominant team that they normally have. They did win the Big East, though. But a 6 seed. Is this going to be my bracket that I'm going to have a couple of upsets in here? I mean, I already got a 12 win, and is an 11 going to win in here? We're going to come back to that game. Purdue, Old Dominion, 3 versus 14. Purdue's moving on. Cincinnati, Iowa. Iowa in the beginning of the year, top 25 team, playing well, a 10 seed. Not finished the year strong, not the team that they were in the beginning of the year. I got Cincinnati moving on. And the final game in this bracket, and I'll go back up to Villanova, St. Mary's, Tennessee and Colgate, 2 versus 15. Tennessee, again, before the SEC tournament, arguably could have been a 1 seed. They are not. And back to Cincinnati. Cincinnati won the American Conference Championship. They beat Houston today. And Houston, a really good team. So that conference has some good teams. You got Cincinnati. You got UCF. You got Houston. So Tennessee's not going to have an easy game against Cincinnati. All right, let's go back up. Villanova, St. Mary's. Do I go St. Mary's? Go with your gut, right? Your first instinct is usually the best, right? I'm going St. Mary's. Villanova's out of the tournament. Virginia, Ole Miss. It's Virginia. Oregon, Kansas State. It's Oregon. St. Mary's, Purdue. I got Purdue. Cincinnati, Tennessee. This is going to be a very unpopular pick. But I think Cincinnati is one team that can really contend against Tennessee. And I think they're going to beat Tennessee. So your 2 games left in this bracket. Virginia, 1 seed. Oregon, 12 seed. Purdue, a 3. Cincinnati, a 7. Virginia, Oregon. Virginia's just too good. They're just too good of a basketball team. They have 3 losses this year, 2 of which are against Duke, and the other is Florida State in the ACC tournament. They're too good. They're too good. They're not going to lose. That's not going to happen again this year. Purdue and Cincinnati. Let's say Cincinnati stays hot. They're going to go and play Virginia. Unfortunately for Cincinnati, they've run into Virginia, and Virginia is going to represent the South. And I have a pretty darn good feeling that. Let's see. I was going to say I have a pretty darn good feeling that I'm going to have a lot of ACC teams in the Final Four. I already have 2, and we got 1 bracket to go. And by the way, I don't think Lindsay's going to join. I thought she was, but I'm already into this last bracket, and she hasn't come up here yet. So we'll see where she's at by the time I finish this. North Carolina, Iona, 1 versus 16 in the Midwest. It's Carolina. Utah State and Washington. If you watched anything out west, which most people might not, some might have, Utah State beat Nevada in the regular season. Utah State, pretty good team. I guess they have this one guy on their team. He's definitely an NBA player. A lot of potential. I'm going Utah State. Auburn, New Mexico State. Auburn just won the SEC championship. They're going to stay hot. They're going to beat New Mexico State. There's no upset there. Kansas and Northeastern. Kansas is not losing to Northeastern. They haven't been great this year, but they're not going to lose to Northeastern. Iowa State versus Ohio State. It's Iowa State. Iowa State. Oh, Lindsay joined. I need you to give me your prediction.
Oh, I haven't even looked at it.
I've been hyping you up, telling everyone that you're going to come in and join and maybe give your predictions here. Okay. I'm going bracket by bracket. I'll let you just look at it. You look at it right now, and you give me your final 4. Just go on to ESPN. I'm filling it out as we talk. Iowa State. What?
Give me a few minutes.
I mean, I'm on the last bracket here. Okay. You don't have that much time, lady, is what I'm trying to tell you. The people want to hear from you. It's DeFaber Bracketology. Iowa State and Ohio State. So Iowa State finished strong. They won the Big 12 championship. They're going to beat Ohio State. Houston and Georgia State. Houston's moving on. Wofford, Seton Hall. I've heard some good things about this Wofford team. They're moving on. Unfortunately, they're going to run into Kentucky, who is going to be Abilene Christian. So you have no upsets in this bracket. Out of the gate, no upsets in the first games. That's the first bracket that I have done that there hasn't been any upsets in the first round. So the Midwest is nice and clean. Carolina and Utah State, I've watched plenty of Carolina. They're too damn good. They're not going to lose to Utah State. Auburn, Kansas. Auburn just won the SEC. Kansas hasn't been the Kansas that they normally are. But if Kansas wins this game and they play Carolina, that game is in Kansas City, which is basically a home game for Kansas. It could catapult them to a Final Four, maybe? I don't know. I've watched Auburn play. I don't like Bruce Pearl. Let's go Kansas. I want Kansas, Carolina in the Sweet 16. 1 versus 4 in the Sweet 16. That's what I'm doing. I'm doing Carolina and Kansas. Huh?
So it will be a revenge from what that was it 08 that they played?
I don't remember. Iowa State, the 6 seed, versus Houston, the 3 seed. Houston's good. They did lose to Cincinnati in the championship game. They did lose to UCF a couple weeks ago. I'm going to keep it clean still. Houston, Kentucky. So your Sweet 16 games out of the Midwest are 1 versus 4, which is North Carolina versus Kansas, and 2 versus 3, Houston and Kentucky. This one's tough. Kentucky's going to beat Houston. Kentucky's moving on. They're going to represent in the Elite Eight. But what is North Carolina and Kansas going to do? Like I said, it's in Kansas City. North Carolina's freaking good, man. They beat Duke twice this year. They're no joke. That's a good squad. They should have beat them in the ACC tournament. Duke pulled that one out. I'm going to take that victory because I was 0-2 this year in the regular season, so I needed at least one win against Carolina. As in Duke. Sorry, babe. I know you're a Kansas fan, but North Carolina's going to beat them. And then you got a potential, what could have been a championship game. You got North Carolina versus Kentucky out of the Midwest. It's Carolina, which is going to create the greatest national championship that I can think of.
Who's your final four?
My final four, for those of you that have been following along and have gotten lost in it all and turned it off probably, my final four is Duke versus Michigan, Virginia versus North Carolina. So I have 3 number 1s and a number 2.
Virginia Duke.
It's not Virginia Duke. It's Duke versus North Carolina in the national championship. What a great way to end the NCAA college basketball season than having the greatest rivalry in the sport be your national championship. It's never happened. They've never played each other in the national championship.
Really?
Yeah, really.
I don't know.
Duke, Carolina, game 4 of the year. Carolina's up 2-1. Trey Jones, back in Minnesota, is going to have a big game, and Duke is your national champion. And I'm going to say the score is going to be 81-77. That's what I got.
Okay.
Duke Blue Devils,
I need to restart my computer.
81-77, your national champions. It's going to be what everyone thought after they saw them beat Kentucky in the first game of the season. Everyone said, oh my God, no one's going to beat this team. This is your national champion. And then the actual season happened and things, as they do, progress. And then people were saying, well, Duke might be a 2 seed in the tournament. Nope. They come back. They win the ACC championship. They are the number 1 overall seed in the tournament. They will go through. They will have challenges. There will be tough games, but they are going to beat North Carolina. They're going to finish the series 2-2. And my Carolina friends are going to suck it for the fact that they might have beat us in the regular season 2 games, but we won when it mattered. The ACC tournament and the NCAA championship, the greatest game we've ever seen. Duke will raise another championship into the banners, and you Carolina fans can go home weeping and hoping that Coach K doesn't put together another incredible team next year, because this will be a wonderful way to end the season. Your Duke Blue Devils, national champions. What do you got?
I just brought it up. Hold on.
All right. Well, now I got to fill airtime. All right. Well, I'm going to submit my. Well, I don't want to submit my picks because this means nothing to me. Actually, I should, because I want to keep this. Your bracket is not complete. I'm on ESPN. God, I forgot.
Can you not pick Duke yet because they haven't played in?
Huh? I went to ESPN and just filled it out. Hold on, folks. I will be right back. All right, she's ready. Lindsay, what's your final four?
My final four is Duke and FSU, Tennessee and Kentucky.
Who do you have winning it?
I didn't get that far. So definitely Duke will go to the finals. And I'm going to say Tennessee.
So on one side of the bracket, you had all ACC, Duke and Florida State, and on the other side, Tennessee, Kentucky. And in the final, you have Duke versus Tennessee. Who's winning it?
Duke.
She's got Duke, too. Okay. I like it. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, even if I didn't cheer for them, they're a darn good team right now.
No argument.
I mean, even if you're a Carolina fan, you can't argue with that. They just beat you.
They will.
Whatever. That's why you're not in the Final Four right for me.
Okay.
Total score. God, I'm terrible at this. I don't know. I don't. Do I need to talk about that?
No, you're good.
Okay. All right. You got it. Oh, you have Oregon going?
So there you go, folks. In the DeFaber household for DeFaber Bracketology, you have both DeFabers picking Duke.
Wow.
Yeah. You weren't here for the whole thing. I went through every single pick and why I picked them. Most of them. There's some that I didn't need to do that. All right. That's it for us. Thank you, Lindsay. Both DeFabers picking Duke. Love to hear what you guys are going to pick. So if you're listening to this and you've gone through the 30-plus minutes of me giving my picks, let me know who you're picking. And again, as always, if you've listened to this, share it, like it, share this on Instagram, send me a DM, or share this with your prediction of who's going to win the national championship. Again, here in the DeFaber household, it's Duke all the way. And I wish everyone the best of luck in your brackets if you have money on it or if it's just for fun, as well as your team, whoever you root for. Wish them the best of luck, unless it's Carolina. Again, you can go fuck yourselves. Good night, everyone.